And yeah, I said anus. Get over it. Whoop. Hey, it's Marvolo and welcome back to my channel. So recently I saw something called the IBD Advocacy tag. It was started by the front butt YouTuber. I saw it on Sarah Ringer's channel. No one tagged me in it because no IBD YouTuber knows who I am. I'm gonna go ahead and tag whichever of my followers is listening to this and makes videos and has IBD. Or if you have IBD and you don't want to make a video, you can answer some of the questions down in the comments below. There are only 5 questions in this tag, but I managed to go into a hell of a lot more detail than I probably need to. So let's get going with it. Question number 1. What form of IBD do you have? Probably the question I go most overkill on. So generally speaking, there are 2 forms of IBD, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. I'll just go ahead and say it real quick. I have Crohn's disease in case you did not know. IBD also stands for inflammatory bowel disease. So there are different types of inflammatory conditions that involve the bowels. Crohn's and ulcerative colitis being the main 2. There are some lesser known, less common forms of IBD as well. A main one is called indeterminate colitis, and that's when there isn't really a difference that can be told as to whether it's ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. It has symptoms of both. Misdiagnosis seems to happen as well. Usually a misdiagnosis of ulcerative colitis and later finding out it is Crohn's disease. I've never heard the opposite happen, but maybe it has. I don't know. Something else I actually learned recently is that Bechets disease can affect the digestive system, and since it's an autoimmune inflammatory disorder, in patients that have those digestive symptoms, they can be considered to have inflammatory bowel disease. So sometimes Bechets can be inflammatory bowel disease, but sometimes not. It's a pretty rare and uncommon disease, and if you'd like to learn about it, I'll link my friend Beth's channel down below. Okay, back to the basic, just Crohn's versus ulcerative colitis. I have Crohn's disease, and my grandpa had ulcerative colitis. Otherwise, there's been no history of IBD in my family. And I say he had ulcerative colitis because out of the 2, ulcerative colitis is curable by having your colon and rectum removed, because those are the only areas of the digestive system that ulcerative colitis will affect. If you have Crohn's disease, that is not the case. It can affect anywhere from the mouth to the anus, so removing just those parts will not get rid of the whole disease like it would with ulcerative colitis. And yeah, I said anus. Get over it. Whoop. So some people think that ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease are more than just 2 diseases and are several diseases that are just being lumped into categories. I'm going to be talking more specifically about Crohn's now because that's the only thing I've ever been diagnosed with. I understand why they like to think of it that way, but for me it helps to just think of it as we're all individuals. I think Sarah Ringer said we're all special snowflakes with IBD, and that is especially the case. It will affect different people differently in severity, location, what works, what doesn't work, what initially caused it. It's crazy how different every Crohn's patient is from the next, and how different the symptoms can be and how different the treatment can be. Some people have little flare-ups but otherwise have almost no symptoms, and others end up having nearly all of their bowels removed and still cannot get control of their disease. It's a very wide spectrum, and lately I've been dealing with very severe flares myself. I've had 1 surgery, and likely I will have more in the future. The surgery I had is called an ileocecectomy, where I had my appendix, cecum, and a foot of my ileum removed. My Crohn's is generally active in my colon, rectum, and ileum. I do have some upper gastro symptoms as well, such as severe acid reflux and a lot of nausea and vomiting. Also, just last year I had to have a blood transfusion because the way Crohn's affects me, it tends to cause a lot of blood loss and malnutrition issues. All that just to say that I have Crohn's. I have other videos where I talk about my diagnosis and different experiences, and I'll continue to make more, but the ones I've already got will be listed down below if you want to learn more. Finally, on to question 2. Why is IBD advocacy important? And why was it so hard for me to say that? Important. I don't know. Nah. Advocacy is important for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to try to keep this answer shorter than the last one. Advocating for Crohn's disease helps to spread awareness. Advocating for ulcerative colitis spreads awareness. Just IBD advocacy is helpful in general because it spreads awareness, first off. I had hardly ever heard of IBD before I was diagnosed, and in the 4 years since being diagnosed, I've noticed a lot more awareness, a lot more people knowing either of someone who has IBD or knowing about it. I've seen it mentioned on TV and in advertisements. It's very interesting. I could just be more attuned to it since I know what it is, but it feels like IBD is starting to be more commonly known in general. So how does awareness help? Well, first off, awareness is helpful for patients. When you're first diagnosed, or even at symptom onset before you actually know what you have, you're going to be really in pain and upset and confused and want to know what's going on. And the more information that's out there, the more awareness that's raised, the more someone can go and find this information and have more peace and understanding of what's going on in their own bodies. I know it really helped me to gain a sense of understanding when I watched other people's videos, read their blog posts and articles, and whether they were just informative or people sharing their own stories, it helped me to feel not so alone and not so shamed by the condition, as well as just learning more about what's happening, what will happen going forward. Yeah. I'm kind of lucky that I was diagnosed when I was. I just passed up my 4-year anniversary of being diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Woo. So I've never had it not in social media times. I never had to be a student with IBD, though it did make me drop out of college, so kind of. Anyway, social media makes advocacy a lot easier. It makes spreading information a lot easier. Unfortunately, it also makes it easier to spread misinformation, but that's why it's important to advocate and make sure we're getting the right kind of information and awareness out there. Also, it's helping to find a sense of community. I imagine that was much harder before social media. I know there were certain IBD like summer camps for kids and teens and stuff. I never did any of that, but I know those are supposedly helpful, and I've heard from people that have attended them that they were really great, and they've maybe even sometimes returned as counselors. All of my IBD friends I've made online pretty much. There is one person I know in real life with Crohn's disease, but otherwise everyone is IBD online. And I actually met the other one through photography, like the model photography community, the local person I know with Crohn's. So that's interesting. When I was first diagnosed, once again, I was watching a lot of videos by Sarah Ringer. She's very informative and was very helpful to me, and you should all go check her out whether you have Crohn's or not, because I guarantee you can learn something from her. Probably one of the most important parts of advocacy is just to inform the general public. There are multiple benefits to this, but straight up the most important one is because that's how we raise donation money towards a cure, towards treatments, towards just, getting rid of Crohn's disease, treating Crohn's disease, and giving patients better quality of life. And with enough advocacy and enough awareness, hopefully we can raise enough money and do enough research to cure these dreadful diseases. It's also just nice for people to know before you meet them and not have to be like their IBD person that teaches them everything about it. In the world of dating or friends or even with family, sometimes it's helpful if you don't have to answer every single little question about your health, if they can just be somewhat informed because the information is out there and being made just available to them. It can be really helpful to not have to go into all that painstaking detail. So just in general, advocacy makes for a better quality of life as a patient. Number 3, describe a socially awkward moment with IBD. Overall, I think that being diagnosed with IBD later in life has been a plus. I didn't have to go through the majority of my schooling with this disease. I dropped out of college as soon as it really started. So I don't really have those embarrassing younger years to look back on. I've only had Crohn's for 4 years, and so everything's still pretty fresh and recent as far as embarrassing or socially awkward IBD moments go. I'll give you a couple examples. I think there are 3 on here of different embarrassing moments I've had with IBD or socially awkward moments. Honestly, all of life feels socially awkward to me because I have social anxiety, so whether I come across comfortable or not in social settings, generally I'm not. Yeah, my anxiety generally leads to me over-explaining, talking too much, and giving out way too much information. In fact, someone once called me TMI girl on her blog, and I don't know if she knows that I read that. And I doubt she'll ever watch that, but if you watch it, hi. Yeah, I read that. It was mean, and it made me sad. But, you know, it was a long time, and I don't care anymore. Anyway, blame the anxiety. Digression over. One of the first socially awkward things I do is tend to go on and on in social situations talking about pooping, often at meal times, usually with family, so it's not so bad, but you can tell someone's getting uncomfortable because you just won't stop talking about bowel movements. Like, a lot of my family has IBS, but I think I take it too far, and I know it's just awkward sometimes. It's just such a social taboo, so I like to make it into a big joke to make myself feel less awkward. But then sometimes it just starts to feel like my life is one big poop joke. So yeah, talking about bowel movements too much is a very regularly occurring socially awkward moment for me. Okay, now I'm going to give you like a more specific occasion type one. This is something that I do stuff like this a lot now. Actually, it reminds me of The Office. If you watch The Office, there's this thing where the character Kevin will just stop in the middle of a sentence or whatever he's doing and just scream, "I have to go to the bathroom," and run out of the room. Yeah, sometimes with IBD, you have to do that. Like, timer's ticking, maybe you have 20 seconds if you're lucky. It hits fast, and even with my bed and bathroom being maybe 15 feet apart, there are times where I can't even quite make it. I have a few accident stories. Luckily, I tend to always be at home, so I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff a lot. Like, I'm either at home or I'm at the doctor, so I'm always near a bathroom unless I'm in a car. Yeah, this is not that kind of story, though. Let me get back on track. Early on in my diagnosis, I was spending a lot of time at my grandma's, so my cousins, aunts, and uncles would be around, and I was also on prednisone, so my face was swollen way fat, more swollen than it was is now. You can say my face doesn't look fat, but this is not my normal face. Like, you can scroll through my video library, it's fatter, and it's swelling, and it's because of a mix of different medications. Anyway, my face was way fatter than this, and for some reason, like, I got a flat chest from the steroids, and it was like my boobs went to my feet, and there were like these jiggly, basically water retention sacs on my feet. And I was at my grandma's, and I had to sprint to the toilet while I was hanging out in the living room, and I started tripping over my own jiggly foot boob feet. My cousin was dying laughing, and I barely made it to the toilet without shitting myself. I sure wasn't laughing. But I mean, I couldn't blame her because I'm sure I looked absolutely ridiculous. Okay, let's stop laughing at my suffering now. None of that's really that funny when it happens. Having to just run out of the room to the bathroom, sometimes it comes off as rude. There's just all sorts of uncomfortableness to it, and it sucks. It's sometimes the only way to deal with this disease is to laugh. So it's funny, but it's not funny because it's my life and it gets old. And like I said earlier, my life sometimes feels like one long, endless poop joke, and I just keep waiting for the punchline and it never ends. Question number 4. What is a common stigma you run into? Finally, one that I can keep short. I see in my notes that it's short. We're finally coming to a close. Alright, but after all this talk I've had of pooping, the most common stigma I hear about Crohn's disease is that it's just a pooping disease, that it's the same as IBS. I think I just poop a lot. I have a lot of diarrhea. I just need to, like, stop pooping so much, and that's the problem. Like, I basically have the stomach flu, like, all the time. Yeah, no. That's not it. That's more what IBS is. IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, causes inflammation because your body attacks itself. It often causes ulceration, and it can leave permanent strictures or scarring of the intestines to the point where they have to be removed, which I've had happen before. Scarred myself shut. There are all sorts of other complications that can happen too, not just pooping. It can involve fistulas, you can have abscesses. Some people end up needing an ostomy bag, whether a colostomy bag or an ileostomy bag. It's pretty common with this disease. It can also cause severe anemia, malnutrition, and severe blood loss, and severe weight loss. And your immune system tends to get suppressed from it, so then you're at risk for all sorts of fun other things. So no, it is not just a pooping disease. And finally, question number 5, what do you want other people to know about IBD? There's so much I want people to know about IBD, and so much of it I've just mentioned. What I really want people to do is get interested and do their own research. and to go out there and ask questions, even if they don't have this disease. If you've just heard about it and you're like, wow, this sounds awful or whatever, I want to learn more, or more than likely, if you know someone who has it, learn more so that you can be a better friend and a better advocate for that friend or boyfriend or girlfriend or family member. Crohn's is terrible, and we need to raise awareness because we need a cure and we need better treatments. There aren't as many treatment options as you might think, and it's easy to go through them pretty fast. I, for one, am running out of treatment options, so yeah, I advocate for new treatment options, but also, above all, for a cure. I want people to know that there are several factors that lead to a person having IBD, getting an inflammatory bowel disease, and that is not the same for any one person. Your IBD journey from start to whenever it ends, someday, will be different from every single other person with IBD. I really would like my doctors to know what it feels like physically, just for them to experience one day with this disease so that they can have a little bit more compassion and understanding for what we go through. I want people to know that it is exhausting. It is physically and mentally exhausting to be this sick all the time. Just to have your body attacking itself takes a lot of energy up, your body trying to repair the damage it's done, then the potential lack of nutrients, loss of weight, and loss of blood can make you just so weak and tired. The fatigue alone can be debilitating. People need to know that these diseases can be debilitating and often are. I think they often get overlooked and misunderstood. Some days it's hard to carry out just the base necessities for survival with this disease. Sometimes we end up in the hospital for a long time. Sometimes we just need to go to the ER and get a couple things in a saline drip. Maybe we need some potassium or a little bit of blood. Maybe we'll be in the hospital just for the day. Maybe we'll be there for a couple weeks or months even. Some people do not have hardly any of their intestines left and rely entirely on tube feeding, IV feeding. And some people never need a surgery at all and can digest pretty much most foods just with a little bit of treatment. There's so much I want you to know about IBD, but it's okay if you don't want to take the time to learn, because there's something better you can do than learn, and that is donate. It'd be great if you did both, but if you would like to donate to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, I will leave a link down below. Any donation is appreciated, and we just really need to help raise awareness for these diseases. And if we can have a cure to IBD, we don't need to learn about telling people about it anyways. Then we won't need IBD advocacy anymore because it will be cured. That's kind of a joke, but also kind of true. Once again, link to where you can donate down in the description. Okay, like I said, I don't know very many people in the Crohn's community that make videos or anything, but I'll go ahead and tag Reed and Aaliyah in case either of them watch this. Otherwise, maybe they'll make one on a different social media platform because they're more active elsewhere, I think. And Beth has Bechets, and if she'd like to make a video about how IBD may have impacted her or how it might impact a person with Bechets, I think that would be very interesting to hear. Woo! Anyone else watching that wants to do this tag, if you have IBD, please do it and send me a link to it somewhere on social media so that I can watch it, because I'm really interested to hear other people's answers to these questions. And once again, if you don't want to make a video sharing your answers, go ahead and just answer whatever questions you're comfortable with down in the comments below. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already so you can stay updated for the next time I make a video. I love you guys, and I'll see you again soon.